My colleagues as well as my principals back then, they were very, understanding. Yeah, provide lots of guidance, and that's how I managed to stay 20 years in Nanyang Girls. I've operated in Singapore as well as the regional area, namely China, Indonesia, as well as Cambodia. Girls tend to be very meticulous, and they're very task-oriented. I think this took quite a bit of getting used to. Right? After spending so many years as a student, as a teacher in a boys' school in my alma mater. There's no playbook because nobody has done this job before in the school, and nobody could really tell you what to do, what are the KPIs. You have to set it yourself. It was a great privilege. It was a great privilege because one of the reasons why I entered teaching was because I was inspired by my teachers. Right? I felt that coming from a mission background, there were other things that were more important than grades. Of course, academic excellence was important, but it was not the most important. Right? Honor, country, God. It was not difficult because I accorded them the same respect that I did as a student. So everybody was a sir and madam to me. Today, many of them are retired, and we still meet up. Yeah, so we still have meals together, and I consider myself privileged to have this opportunity. I think interpersonal touch is really a journey. In the classroom, I think if you don't have the interpersonal touch with pupils nowadays, the connection will not be there, right? You will not touch their hearts. If you don't touch their hearts, you don't touch their interest. It's interesting because when you mention interpersonal, it's not just between teachers and students, it's also with colleagues, right? Because no man is an island. Right? You work not as an individual teacher, you also work with your department colleagues, and increasingly you work across departments as well as across schools, and you never know, right? You help a colleague in education today, tomorrow he or she can help you in some other way. Not only in a school setting, maybe some other country, So from the teacher's point of view, of course it's teaching and learning. That was a priority, right? For the students, it was comfort, convenience, but from a management point of view, finances was also another part of the equation. To add it all up, school safety was increasingly important. School safety and security. To answer your question, there was no, playbook, so to speak, that I could refer to, right? But this also presented opportunities because I was then, I needed to to speak more to colleagues, as well as students, as well as the school leaders, right? All this would have been easy if everybody had the same view, but as it turns out, everybody had their own perception of how academic excellence could be achieved with improved infrastructure. One of the first things she asked me to do when she posted in was, she told me, "Paul, this school is getting small, right? We are having so many activities, but we're running out of space. Can you make more space?" Right? Yeah. So how do you make more space with limited land in the prime area like Bukit Timah? I think this took many phases. The first phase was when I proposed to have a space redesign for the teachers, because at that point of time, we needed more space for the teachers, right? The staff room was getting smaller. We had more and more teachers, and we had more teaching materials, right? And we had a requirement for more meetings, so to speak. This was the day before e-learning, yeah. So we did a space redesign where we basically optimized space within the staff rooms and made use of white spaces within the school more efficiently. The second major project which made an impact on me as head of infrastructure was I was given the opportunity of proposing new buildings to the school. This was completed in the around about 2016, right? And this afforded more learning space. Teachers and students had more opportunities to train for CCA, as well as have lessons in a more less congested environment. It's an interesting question because it was the first time I took on the role of school leadership as a vice principal. How does education work in Jakarta? What are their interests? Right? What drives them? Working with people of a different culture or different values, different beliefs, right, was quite an eye-opener for me, right? Fortunately, I had good colleagues who took me through, but it took time. Efficiency system of the Singapore education climate, right, needed to be, modified to suit the Indonesian culture as well as focus, right? So this needed a lot of modifying, to suit the pace as well as beliefs. Yes, I did that by sitting a lot with parents, as well as teachers, as well as my board members. My intention was to maintain the Nanyang brand of education in Jakarta, to uphold the Singapore standard, as well as rigor, to infuse a love of learning, because with Indonesian students, right, they are a fun-loving bunch. The batch that we have, the clientele, they come from a well-to-do family, right? So how do you keep their interest and still maintain, the Singapore brand of rigor and academic excellence? It goes back to relationship building, with the children, as well as your teachers, as well as the parents. I think for advice for the young people of today who have an eye for entering the teaching profession, come in with your eyes opened, right? I think information right now is a lot more readily available, right, than it has ever been, right? If you don't have friends in the teaching profession, look up the YouTube, cross-check your sources, right, on the internet. The teaching profession are full of people who are really very willing to share their experiences, and they will share, you know, the successes and the joys as well as the challenges. But I'm really very excited because teaching in Singapore has entered another phase where the challenges of the teachers are discussed much more openly nowadays. So for a young person who is coming in, right, be aware of these challenges, even as they continue to be addressed, you know, by the ministry, right? It will take time. It will not be addressed by tomorrow, or the next year, or maybe the next 5 years, you know. But I think it is a good start. I think the question is, what are the traits that school leaders look out for when identifying potential head of departments? Actually, the ministry has guidelines. There are certain qualities that we look out for, but maybe I can just name some. I think the ability to look at issues with a helicopter perspective, from a helicopter perspective, right, and not have a myopic view on certain issues. Yeah, because as heads, we're expected to look from different perspectives, you know, and not be fixated. So the ability to look from an organization perspective and yet take into the various interests of stakeholders is very important in the head, and much more in a school leader. I think it's tough to answer this question. I mean, well, first of all, you need to make have it known to your reporting officer, because part of the appraisal system, right, also allows you to voice your aspirations, you know, and where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, you know, and how you're going to get there, right? So your reporting officer will take note of this and support you along the way. This will actually be known to the school leader, right? And this is how schools work in terms of succession. Every year, you know, there is teachers who leave the system, you know, and every year they replace leaders at various levels, right? So back to the question is, how does a wannabe, right, get to be identified, right? So that's the first step. Let your colleagues know, let your reporting officer know, let your school leader know. The second one is really be true to yourself as well as your colleagues. My advice is, don't get up there by stepping on others. Right? It never works. Right? Be true to yourself. Help your colleagues, you know, in the best way you can. Nobody is perfect, but using your strengths to help others, right? I felt that really worked for me, right? Because it's also part of a school leader. As a school leader, you're expected to help. The third one, as we mentioned just now, I think it's interpersonal relations. You know, interpersonal skills is so important. I cannot understate that. Right? You may have the best intentions, but it becomes wrong. You know, it's not going to work because you're working with human beings, right? And emotions is a very strong factor in building success. Right? So, yeah. So, if you are a school leader wannabe, give yourself the runway and opportunity, you know, to work on this. Yeah. I would tell my younger self, right, to not be culturally adverse, meaning experience different cultures, you know, from an earlier age, right? I think back then we were not so exposed to working globally, right? The whole idea of working globally back then was quite alien. Start your work earlier, appreciate cultures in Indonesia regionally first, right? And before going globally. Life is a balance, right? Don't sacrifice too much of your health, you know. Don't sacrifice health and family, you know, for work. Because at the end of the day, work is a means to an end. And what is the end? The end for me is really, you know, for family, for health, you know, and for a better future, right? Yeah. So sadly, I've seen many sacrifices made by many colleagues, right, at a very high cost, right? So if I had it my way, the younger Paul would not have focused so much on work and doing more than what was reasonably required.